So once again, welcome, good morning, welcome to the Thursday Dialogues on Agroecological Schools. Today is Thursday, 19th of January. It's 10 a.m. in the European Central Time. This event is a part of the project Sharing Knowledge for a Stronger Agroecology Movement in Europe and Central Asia, and is hosted by Agroecology Community of Practice Building. It is built on the 11 pillars of the ledant Declaration on the agroecology, which is the network that promotes and strengthening of existing agroecology initiatives, facilitates the emergence of new agroecology schools, and coordinates advocacy works for small-scale producers' rights. Now I would like to present our today's speaker, who is Joanna Bojczewska. Joanna is food sovereignty leader in Poland and is initiator of Perma Lab Foundation and co-founder of ledant Polska Food Sovereignty Network in Poland. She is graduate of social anthropology and has over 10 years of work experience dedicated to hands-on gardening, organic gardening, and that includes 3 years of running a biodiverse market garden nearby Krakow in Poland. And she has also more than 5 years of experience of delivering the trainings on agroecology and permaculture. She specializes in design land-based learning programs and facilitating transformative education. And she also creates curricula and educational materials. She collaborates at the intersection of approaches that uses energy of agroecology, permaculture, and integral education in designing learning spaces. So welcome, Joanna. Thank you for your presentation, and I give you the floor.
Once again, welcome to this presentation. My name is Joanna Bojczewska. I'm representing Agro Perma Lab, but also wider food sovereignty network in Poland. And today I will speak on the topic of schools without walls and give you some of the lessons we have learned in Poland, share with you some of the lessons we have learned in Poland about introducing, translating and expressing agroecology on our soil and on our ground with our language and in our communities, which is not a very long process. In fact, everything started several years ago when a delegation of approximately 20 people went in 2016 to Romania for the second Food Sovereignty Forum, and having come back from there with a lot of inspiration and a lot of vigor about a new way of speaking about things that concerned us in agriculture and in food markets, in our food communities, decided to start food sovereignty movement in Poland called ledant Polska. Very quickly, this movement gained momentum. It was, I think it was possible because it was joined by very many different and diverse actors who were coming into what we call in agroecology schools a dialogue of diverse knowledges. So we had urban food cooperatives, we had farmers organizations like the organic farmers organization Ecoland. We had existing educational farms and their leaders. We had different ecological and environmental organizations who were recognizing food as a way of addressing climate change and speaking about social economy. So in 2017, we organized first Food Sovereignty Forum in Warsaw, which gathered over 120 representatives and leaders of those different civil society organizations. And this model of creating a platform in which different perspectives could meet, different people could speak from different regional experiences. And we were also using this framework of food sovereignty and agroecology, helped us to start bridging the gap between the global perspective and local perspective. And during that first Food Sovereignty Forum, we had a working group on agroecology where we were first trying to translate it into our terms. We were using the 11 pillars of agroecology defined by Millennium Declaration of 2015 to orient ourselves towards what agroecology is understood by other international and national farmers and peasant movements and civil society movements, and what does it mean for us, since Poland at that time, for those who don't know perhaps, has been more or less 25 years since the beginning of a neoliberal market transformation and the end of communist governance system. It is maybe worth giving you just a little snippet on Poland. It is a country which has always been located between, let's say, the East and the West. So we do not generally in Poland consider that we're in Eastern Europe, but we are Central European country. But that is more to say that it is a country that has experienced a lot of different economic and agricultural reforms, and integrates a lot of ideas from many different places. It is a largely agricultural country. Mostly the territories are plains, lowlands. They have been agricultural, and unlike in Eastern Europe, in other Soviet republics, and it did not undergo a main farm collectivization program. So during communism, only in some regions agricultural land and small farms were collectivized, but mostly the agricultural system remained in the hands of peasant and family farmers. And with the economic change in the 1990s, rural communities, rural activists, farming activists have started recognizing that we need to protect our family farms, which started shrinking and shrunk by over 1 million from around the number of 2 million in early 1990s to significantly below 1 million. Food sovereignty network, since its inception, started organizing intergenerational farmers meetings for agroecology and for food sovereignty. So these were our popular education spaces. These were usually 2-day events where we invited farmers from very different walks of lives. We hosted representatives of Solidarity Farmers, of Organic Farmers Association. We hosted the new entrance to farming from permaculture movement or regenerative farming, and also urban agroecological farmers or urban gardeners. And during these meetings, we, among others, discussed the Peasant Rights Declaration of the United Nations. We had very interesting dialogues about what does it mean, what does the word peasant mean for us, and what does it mean to be a farmer. These were not easy discussions, as peasant was made a very archaic word in the several decades of communist governance. And we were trying to understand how appropriate agroecology is as a term. We were very much supported in this process, and we were integrating with the ecological organic association of Ecoland and with other older generation farmers, as, let's say, the young generation of food and agricultural activists, on our agroecology farm school, EU. And EU is a very special place, located 100 kilometers west from Warsaw. It has 30 years experience of farm-based education. It is located on over 20 hectares of agricultural land. It has kitchen garden, vineyard. It has regular crop cultivation of rye and other crops. It has organic cheesery and bakery. And several years ago, it has also created what is called Ecological Folk High School. This was an initiative to start 2-year organic farming programs based on 14 months of practice on existing farms. so that young people who wanted to move into agriculture could have a very hands-on experience with a few week-long residential study periods, 4 times in two years, as well as farm visits in the methodology of farmer-to-farmer knowledge sharing. So EUL has integrated a Danish educational model for popular education, for strengthening civic engagement and strengthening lifelong education in rural areas, as well as the Swiss biodynamic model of ecological farm education. Throughout the last years, since pretty much 2016, EUL Agroecology Farm has been a focal point for all kinds of smaller grassroots initiatives that work for food and farming, including Perma Lab, which I'm representing today, as a young organization which actually grew out of the food sovereignty movement on the one hand, and was very much supported by EUL and one of our permaculture projects, Permacultura Edu, at the beginning. So just trying to speak about agroecology, introduce this global concept to a territory that has only heard it before in academic terms, was a somehow tedious, long, and confusing process. Agroecology initially in 1930s grew out of academic tradition. Then it was appropriated by practitioners, and there was more dialogue with farmers and with the land experts, the practitioners, between researchers and academics. So what we decided to do is to organize a 10-day training for agroecology leaders and educators in 2019. And this could have not happened without support from Scola Campesina, with whom we designed or rather adapted the agroecology and global governance of food and agriculture curriculum. We consulted this curriculum with a pedagogical committee in Poland, which consisted of activists in our food sovereignty network, as well as farmers. And we invited to the training 20 leaders and activists from across Poland who represented various agricultural and food initiatives. This training was based on a dialogue of different knowledges, so on Dialogo de Saberes, which means every day we hosted 2 experts in specific topical areas, for example, agricultural markets or agricultural institutions and politics, or agricultural practice, etc. And just to give you an example, on one day we hosted one of our most renowned and respected traditional peasant seed savers, who has multifunctional generation-to-generation farm in Świętokrzyskie Voivodeship, as well as we invited the expert from the National Seed Bank. So we had an academic perspective and a very practical farmer perspective. And following their presentations, we would have a dialogue, and everyone was encouraged to express themselves, express their feelings, express their perspective on the implications of what we are hearing, not only for our organizations regionally, but also for the food sovereignty movement. This training was also important for the translation of agroecology in another way. During the training, we started the work on the Polish Declaration of Agroecology, which meant that we again had to rewrite what those 11 principles of agroecology meant for us. We had to adapt the language in which we spoke. We had to start working on the order of principles as they were most suited to our context, whilst retaining the connection to the global agroecology movement. And critical in the work that has been happening for now over 4 years on refining this declaration has been Coalition Living Earth, which is an alliance of multiple politically involved civil society organizations that lobby together for agroecological policy in Poland. At this point, Polish Declaration of Agroecology is in its final text form, and it has been signed by multiple agroecology, environmental, climate, and food organizations, and it will be soon presented to Polish governing institutions. In the process of translating agroecology to Poland, we have also decided that we would create our own iconography and our own visualization of the principles. Now those principles, those icons are visible on Bilim platform, which is our digital platform for connecting in Eastern Europe and Central Asia. And not long from now, because only 2 years ago, we were continuing our educational work in the form of the second Food Sovereignty Forum. These forums are very important places for making agroecology not only the language of farming, but a language of the language in which we can unite all actors and all sectors of society around the work for the right to healthy, nutritious food and socially just markets and food economies. During the second Food Sovereignty Forum, the Polish Declaration of Agroecology has been discussed. We also had working groups on agroecological education and panel discussions on agroecology involving some of our politicians. Accompanying a lot of that mainstreaming and scaling up and scaling out work, we also produced publications in Polish that were giving an overview of agroecology, both from global perspective and from our national perspective. So, for example, there were articles on agroecology report by the high panel level of experts by the FAO, but also our own experts from the coalition Living Earth have produced a very interesting map of the international and national institutions that are critical in shaping the food and agricultural politics. So we called this map many-headed Hydra, because as we found out, the Polish level of agricultural politics is very complex, very distributed. There are very many actors. So to orient ourselves in how we can bring agroecology to the tables of all those institutions was the job of Food Sovereignty Forum and continued work of our lobbying organizations in Coalition Living Earth. Since the first training in 2019 on agroecology and global governance of food and agriculture, which was actually our piloting of agroecology school, we have adopted very much so in Perma Lab this social movement educational methodology. So since then, we've been organizing trainings and we've become a bit of a hub for, or we aimed to become a hub that would focalize and connect leaders and educators. So persons who are in the multiplier roles, as far as we considered knowledge sharing on agroecology and permaculture was important part of changing the whole food system. Soon we realized that our next critical topic should be seed education, because not so much has been happening in that respect. And as we found out during research with our farmer seed savers, who also have their own seed homes, we heard from them that they consider that we are about 20 or 30 years behind in our seed education and seed awareness on a society level. We are 20, 30 years behind Germany, or Netherlands, or places where people have realized much earlier that the seed sovereignty and autonomy of seed is one of the critical pillars for food sovereignty in the country. With that in mind, and with the support of Community Seed Banks Academy and support of many different initiatives in Europe, Real Seed Catalog, Heritage Seed Library in the UK, Red de Semillas from Spain, with Scola Campesina's support, also with Arquenoa support, with a lot of grassroots seed initiatives supporting us to run our training. We first conducted a research on our own practices on the ground, on our own needs and our own level of political awareness about seed legislation. Then we conducted a training for 20 leaders. And again, one of our principles is that we try to make the group very diverse. So for this can mean that when we are choosing people to participate in our trainings for leaders, we may prioritize bringing someone in from outside of food sovereignty movement, or someone who has not met with those frameworks and ideas before and represents like much less visible region or sector, so that we have a very diverse dialogue. And lastly, once we've conducted research that informs training, and once we had a 10-week-long online training on community seed saving strategies, we supported the construction of the first community seed home in Poland. It's not quite the first seed bank, but it was first community designed seed home, in the sense like we've really tried to integrate all the good practices that have been already visible in various international seed homes and seed banks. And for us, it was important that we decided to talk about seed homes and not seed banks. This actually comes from the first Scola Campesina training on agroecology, when one of the participants in Colombia said that in Colombia, the peasant and farmers communities do not talk about seed banks, because seed banks make a connection, and the connection in meaning, the association to finance, to corporations, to something that is held outside. Seeds are held in everyone's home, and they are the right of everyone. Everyone has the right to have their seed home, and everyone's home should be a place where seeds should be stored, and everyone should have the right to that. So we really borrowed and were inspired by the Colombian example in that and in that regard. In 2021, we've been also invited to conduct another research in collaboration with Scola Campesina and the International Community of Practice on Agroecology, a research called the Tool for Agroecology Performance Evaluation, in short TAPE, which measured the degree to which 15 farms moved towards implementing agroecology based on different criteria. This helped us to see that this kind of research tool is not only a way to measure something from outside, but is a way in to have a dialogue with farmers and to start together identifying what are the weakest points, what are the areas where those weaknesses, for example, are coming from systemic problems, for example, lack of appropriate policy or a lack of appropriate regional action on a municipality or province level of governance. So as far as I understand, there have been over 20 countries that participated on behalf of FAO in piloting this particular research tool. And we collaborated on this with the Center for Agricultural Advisory, which is the governmental arm, a governmental institution in Poland that actually advises farmers on the ground. Oftentimes it's a kind of large-scale agronomic consultancy work. But also this Center for Agriculture Advisory has some great projects. For example, it networks. It connects a network of over 300 educational farms. These do not have to be specifically organic certified farms or even agroecological per se, but these are farms that are supported to create their educational scripts and to implement the programs. They are supported with marketing this education. So each province in Poland has a little map that shows where are the educational farms. So this project, the TAPE project, also showed us that it's worth collaborating with our national institutions. Now, when I put the title Schools Without Walls, I was meaning two things. On the one hand, I was meaning to point to the importance of our agroecological farm, EUN, and its role in bringing forth agroecology to Poland. It's a school without walls because it's a farm, and I think farms are just unmatchable places for conveying the essence of agroecology. I don't think we can teach agroecology in schools without contact with the matter, with nature, with cooking, with seeing the crop going from the garden to the kitchen, and with understanding farmers' realities of work. On the other hand, I wanted to say that agroecology can go in many different directions. For example, EU has started work on creating market qualifications that are informed by agroecology, among other things. These qualifications include agroecological gardening, climate change education, biodiversity education, and community-supported agricultural facilitation. So we are creating new vocational pathways so that people who finish trainings like that can be recognized by also formal institutions to deliver quality education elsewhere. And to start wrapping up this story, in 2019 and 2020, a research was conducted on 3 initiatives, grassroots initiatives in Poland that represent agroecology schools' approach and methods in organizing informal education and strengthening new entrants in getting knowledge, skills, and networks. This was part of EU ruralization project, and this project found out that to strengthen the whole so-called social technical transition. So we actually mean that we have to change both the economy and societal understanding and also the politics. We not only need for the new entrants to have access to land, but really we have to strengthen their access to so-called intangible resources such as skills, networks, and knowledge. And just very briefly, because you can find the full PDF article describing what we do in Poland from research perspective on internet, it's freely available. But just to show that this research helped us to see how different initiatives actually, not as one agroecology school initiative, but as a distributed network of collaboration, works as an agroecology school by on some initiatives strengthen leaders and educators, others remove barriers for the new entrants to access practical knowledge. Some, like Agroperma Lab, are working on the meta level and they are educating the educators, creating multiplier effect, whereas others are adapting the concept of popular education on the ground in educational programs on farms. With this, I would like to just say that we are in the process now of supporting emergence of other agroecology schools, supporting exchange of experiences, and this series is also one of our projects which we support co-organizing. So thank you. This has been a pleasure to speak, and now I'm really happy to hear your impressions and questions.
Thank you, Joanna. It was really impressive, and I'm very impressed always by how food sovereignty movement in Poland and agroecology movement in Poland grew from like it started very late, as you told, in 2016, and it grew very fast, and it's really inspiring. And yeah, I would like to thank our presenter, our interpreters, the international community for joining this co-creating and learning space. So thank you. I would like to thank all the small-scale food producers for providing us with nutritious food so that we have the power to talk, to share our knowledge, wisdom, and to think and to reflect on all the things that we are doing and what we can create together. Thanks for the support of Agroecology Fund and RITA program, and also thanks to Agro Perma Lab and Schola Campesina for organizational and logistical work on this project.